Hi, welcome to TNT. It's 50 years to the day, April the 30th, 1975, the day Saigon fell to the approaching North Vietnamese army, when older and wiser Vietnam veterans still wonder if all the sacrifices were worth it. An astonishing 2.7 million American soldiers were sent to Vietnam to fight in someone else's backyard. And nearly 60,000 young American soldiers perished in the jungles and skies of Vietnam, fighting a war the Americans never fully understood, but were told it was an existential war against the creeping scourge of communism. And the US dropped nearly twice as many bombs on Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia during the Vietnam War than it did in all of World War II. The results of this imbroglio reverberated around the region for the next decade, not the least the rise to power of the Khmer Rouge and the systematic death of up to 3 million Cambodians, around 40% of its population at the time. But by 1975 in Vietnam, the situation had reached a bloody stalemate. But with civil unrest rising at home, US officials no longer had the stomach for more nightly film of body bags containing young Americans being loaded into helicopters. I should also note that 60,000 Australian soldiers participated with their American allies, losing 521 in the fruitless battles. As for the home team, some 3.8 million Vietnamese died in the battle to reunify their country. The communists had won and to this day still rule the country that now welcomes Americans as tourists and is now one of the rising tigers of Southeast Asia. On April the 30th, 1975, as the North Vietnamese tanks were rolling through the gates of the US Embassy in Saigon, there was panic as US citizens and plenty of Vietnamese were trying to evacuate in the dying moments of the war. And there are tens of thousands of stories of individuals and families getting out of Saigon on that pivotal day. None more unlikely than the story of Major Buang Ly, who landed a 4-seat Cessna on the crowded deck of the US aircraft carrier Midway. He just wanted to save his wife and 5 children, so stole the plane as the North Vietnamese were approaching and just headed out to sea, not really sure even where he was going. He didn't even know if the plane was fueled up or how far he'd be able to go. As fate would have it, he could see a convoy of helicopters on the horizon, all in the midst of evacuations, landing on the deck of the Midway, sitting, waiting in the South China Sea. With all the helicopters scattered around the deck, there was no way there was any sort of runway for even a small fixed-wing aircraft. And the pilot didn't have a headset, so was unable to use the radio, so instead scribbled a message on a piece of paper and tried dropping it on the deck in a flypast to alert the bemused captain and crew of the enormous aircraft carrier. But the notes just blew off the side of the deck. But on his third attempt, the note hit the deck and was rushed to the captain. It read, "Can you please move those helicopters to the other side? I can land on your runway. I can fly 1 more hour. We have enough time to move. Please rescue me, Major Buang, wife and 5 children." And the captain had orders to just let the plane ditch at sea and get one of the Midway's helicopters to rescue the people aboard. But the captain realised that that would have been a death sentence and decided to put humanity ahead of helicopters on that chaotic day against orders. Captain Lawrence Chambers had led the mission Operation Frequent Wind on that day, but is best remembered for his moment of haste. He ordered that at least 5 expensive helicopters be pushed over the side to make way for the landing of that little Cessna, by a desperate Vietnamese man with his family who had never seen an aircraft carrier before, let alone land on one. And the huge aircraft carrier swung around into the wind in preparation for the tiny Cessna to make its attempt. The Cessna made a few quick approaches, then on its third approach, with the entire crew's eye glued on the small plane, the little Cessna dropped its wheels on the deck, bounced a bit, then stopped as crew grabbed onto the tail to stop the 7 people careering off the end of the deck. The father had saved his family and was mostly worried that he might lose his pilot's licence. The captain thought he'd surely lose the command of his ship. But in the end, the crew took the hat around and collected money so the young Vietnamese family could get a head start with their new life in the United States. For Captain Chambers, he wasn't court-martialed. He was promoted to Rear Admiral and retired in 1984. Buang Ly and his family settled in Florida. They are now all US citizens, and he and his wife now have 7 grandchildren. Whilst April the 30th, 1975 was the end of a costly military farrago, it was also the day when courage and humanity found a runway for 7 desperate Vietnamese. Captain Lawrence Chambers is now 95 years old, and at the time 50 years ago described Buang Ly as the bravest man alive. And today, a unified Vietnam celebrates Reunification Day with grand military parades and street celebrations, the horrors of what they called the American War a distant memory. Remember that 70% of the country's population have been born since 1975. And wherever you are today, Captain Chambers, we salute you.